Ladies and gentlemen, the guy at the end of the bar proudly presents the Dantanna's Late Shift. Brought to you by Attorney Ray Giudice. And now the two men to take you to new heights in sports conversation, Nick Cellini and Matt Chernoff.
And welcome to the Late Shift here on CSS. We're here to make you laugh. We're clowns. We amuse you. That's Matt Chernoff. I am Nick Cellini. Later on, Sekou Smith from NBA TV and NBA.com will preview the NBA Finals, among other things, when you talk about the association. But in the meantime, let's do it ourselves. Let's talk about the NBA Finals, and I think it's the matchup that everybody wanted to see. I thought it was going to be the matchup last year. It's the Spurs and, of course, the defending champs, the Miami Heat, taking care of business, knocking off the Pacers in 7.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts right off the bat, and we'll talk to Sekou about this coming up, Nick. But I think the pressure all of a sudden is going to be off the Heat. I think had they lost in an upset to the Pacers, we would have called it a huge disaster, and I know we still will if they lose to a Spurs team, but this is a Spurs team that has championship pedigree. Indiana just was a tough matchup for the Miami Heat because of Hibbert and because of West and the length and all the things. LeBron stepped up big. Wade was big in the clinching game in Game 7. I think Miami's still better, the best team in basketball. I think they'll beat the Spurs in 5 or 6 games. I don't think the Spurs match up as well. I think they're a better team than Indiana. I think the Heat match up better with San Antonio.
I think you got to be careful there. You're flying pretty high there.
Is that what I'm doing?
Just be careful.
I'm getting crazy.
You're talking about a team that has 4 titles. You're talking about a team that swept LeBron back in 07. He wants revenge. But here's my question. Can Dwayne Wade be the guy that we saw in Game 7? Because if he's not, I don't think Miami's going to win this series.
Well, maybe, and that's a fair point. Dwayne Wade with the knee, he steps up when he has to because that's what he's really left to do. This series will always be about LeBron, but I think it'll also be about the other guys. As you're taking a look at the Ginobilis and the Duncans and the Parkers, I think those other players, the Ray Allens who came up with 10 big points in Game 7, Battier's got to be big. Haslam's got to do the dirty work. These players have to step up as much now because your point on Wade is a fair one more than ever before.
Mario Chalmers is going to have to play huge, and I don't know what's going on with Chris Bosh. I don't know how much of it is psychological, but he has really been an invisible man. And if he gets outplayed to a certain extent, like he was against Roy Hibbert by Tim Duncan, I don't think the Heat can overcome that.
See, I think Duncan will outplay him because he's better, but the matchup is better for Bosh. That Roy Hibbert matchup with Bosh, I think he was intimidated. I think he'd gotten his head. Hibbert was outstanding, but Chris Bosh has been lost. There's no way to describe the way he's playing. Here's what I don't like. He's become too much of a finesse three-point shooter, living out there. He has got to be the guy once in a while to do some of the dirty work that the Heat need. But your official prediction, you like the Spurs.
I like San Antonio in 6. I said it.
All right, I like the Miami Heat to win, and I guess, like I said, in 5 or 6, they're just the better team. Now, one day the Atlanta Hawks are hoping to have the issue of playing in an NBA Finals. They've never done it. Heck, they've never been to an Eastern Conference Final. Well, they've made a coaching change and a hire. Mike Budenholzer comes in, the longtime assistant in San Antonio for Greg Popovich. So he's going to bring that system. He's going to try to bring a way about doing things the right way. The question is, when you have Tim Duncan, it's a lot easier to implement a system. How is he going to do it here?
Well, I think a lot of longtime assistants, the latest trend in the NBA is guys like Thibodeau, guys like that have stepped up, and they have had some success. Frank Vogel at Indiana as well. But you're right, he's doing this now without the services of Tony Parker as well as Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili. He said one thing that I don't necessarily think Hawks fans want to hear. They're going to embrace the European style.
Well, that works because it's like the Spurs. You know, look at it again. Parker, Ginobili, Thiago Splitter. They have several guys who play that philosophy, but we know the NBA is built around superstars. And maybe it's far-fetched, maybe it's a pipe dream, but the Hawks do have the money to bring in 2 max players, and the rumors keep swirling that Danny Ferry is going to try to do everything and pull out all the stops to convince Chris Paul and Dwight Howard to come home and play here in Atlanta. Now, Howard has been against it, but now there's a report that says if Chris Paul's interested, maybe you can get Dwight. Is Danny going to be able to sell these 2 on coming here?
Well, Donald Sterling upset Chris Paul by saying Vinny Del Negro lost his job with the Clippers because of Chris Paul. Dwight Howard clearly doesn't want to be the guy in Los Angeles or any place else. The only way this is going to happen is if Chris Paul decides to a certain extent, he's from North Carolina, come back home. I think Dwight Howard would be willing to do it as well. The sales pitch that Danny Ferry has to make is the Atlanta Spirit LLC, they are a thing of the past. I'm the guy that's now in charge.
And also, picture what it's going to be like up on that dais, on that podium, when you have the jersey unveiling, and you guys are the story of the NBA, and you've got Paul and Howard. And now Al Horford becomes the third piece, which would really give you depth. You have Lou Williams, money to spend in the mid-level to bring in a small forward. They would all of a sudden become a quick contender in the Eastern Conference.
Well, you're talking about a buzz surrounding that team. There's still a buzz surrounding the Atlanta Braves, despite the fact that they have 3 regulars well under a batting average of 200. Dan Uggla, Jason Hayward, B.J. Upton. Now, B.J. Upton this past weekend kind of came around to a certain extent, but the struggles have begun again. Dan Uggla seems lost at times. And Jason Hayward had a single the other night, snapping an 0 for 19 skid. Something has to be done sooner or later if this trend does continue.
All right, couple of things. Hayward had the home run and the opposite field single. Upton had the good night and then the home run the next night on the weekend series against the Nats. Uggla's the one that I think we're all closest to admitting is now 33 years old and looks like he's a shell of himself, so Ramiro Pena maybe gets more time. I don't think the Braves can afford to give up and turn their back on Jason Hayward, and monetarily they can't with BJ because they gave him the 5-year deal. Jason Hayward's still supremely talented. He's highly inconsistent. He's got to find that, but that's the fine line Freddie's got to walk. Freddie Gonzalez and giving these guys playing time but putting your best 8 on the field. Hey, they've got a big lead. They've given themselves some leeway here that whatever they're doing must be working.
I want the leads. What they have is that lead, so you're right, they have that luxury, but if a guy like Evan Gattis continues to swing a hot bat, Ramiro Pena, you talked about him, you've got to start finding places for these guys in the lineup. And don't forget Jordan Schaefer atop the lineup, too, making things happen from that leadoff position. And he may be their best defensive outfielder, too.
Could be. All right, finally, we have to talk about the college football world. And G. Gordon Gee, the president there of Ohio State.
Make sure you get my name right there.
There he is with the glasses and the bow tie. Looks like a character. He has put his foot in his mouth yet again, and you being our residential Ohio State fan, I know you probably have some pretty passionate feelings on this.
You tell the SEC that when they can learn to read and write, they can figure out what we're doing.
He is a guy that has done this so many times over, but the problem is he's in charge of, he is out of central casting. He's in charge of an institution that has earned more money and has cleared more money than anybody else in college athletics. So that's why he's still around, although the Board of Trustees, well, they've now stepped up and said, we mean it this time. Wow. Don't do it again. And
G. Gordon Gee said, I apologize again. I was just trying to be a funny guy.
Here's what I would say. Act presidential. You're a president. You know what's supposed to happen and what you're supposed to. Like guys on message boards or guys like us hosting shows, we take the stupid, funny shots because we have no repercussions. You're the president of a major university. It's not just the shot at the SEC. That was sort of funny. The stuff when you start towing lines about religion and talking about Notre Dame and the priests, boy, you're going to make one too many statements. Even all the money you're raising, you're not going to be able to come back from it some point.
Those Catholics are, you know what they are.
When we come back, Sekou Smith previews the NBA Finals. He's from NBA TV and NBA.com. That's where he's from. Stick around.
Now back to the Dantanna's Late Shift. Brought to you by Attorney Ray Giudice, featuring the Knights of Cellini Kick Line and the Chernoff Dancers.
As we continue here on the Late Shift, we are now ready to turn our attention to the NBA Finals. With that in mind, we welcome in Sekou Smith from NBA TV and NBA.com, who joins us on the Zero Res Hotline. Sekou, it's a pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm good, guys. How are you doing?
We're doing great. And now we have a matchup of the Heat and the Spurs, which I know TV execs are going to be very happy to have Miami in. Tell me your initial thoughts of the matchup.
Yeah, I think certainly the folks who are in charge of keeping up the ratings are very happy. I think it's a matchup that we all could kind of see coming late in the season. It was going to either be Oklahoma City or San Antonio in most people's eyes out west, and the Heat were the prohibitive favorites in the East. It's a lot like 2007 when the Spurs and the Cavaliers matched up, except I would argue that LeBron has a little better reinforcements this time around facing that Spurs team. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how Tony Parker matches up with whoever they try and assign to guard him. And I can't wait to watch Kawhi Leonard try and guard LeBron James and see if he can't slow LeBron down.
And it's funny, we keep bringing up LeBron James in Cleveland, as in, is there a possibility after one more year he could go back to Cleveland? Do you lend any credence to any of those rumors?
I don't necessarily lend any credence to him, but I certainly wouldn't rule anything out. I think over the past few years, all of the craziness we've seen in free agency, all the different things that have gone on, if somebody told you James Harden would have been on Houston's roster last year, you laughed at him. I mean, you just never can tell what might take place. And then with free agency, we have a lot of it's going to depend on what goes on this summer with Chris Paul and Dwight Howard and where they end up and how that changes the landscape in the Eastern Conference potentially if they come east. So I think LeBron is going to have to weigh all of his options and ask himself, is Miami the best place going forward for him compete for championships. And if not, he's going to have to make some changes.
We'll save your prediction, Sekou, for a couple of moments, but with the thought of the way guys are moving around, you brought up Chris Paul and Dwight Howard. And I asked Nick, I'll use the same expression, is it a pipe dream to think that Danny Ferry can convince both Paul and Howard to come play with the Hawks?
Sure, it's a pipe dream, but there's nothing wrong with dreaming when you got, $34 million in cap space to work with and 4 draft picks and an entire roster to fill out. I think, if you don't swing for the fences when you're in these situations, you don't earn your money as a GM. So Danny Ferry needs to pull out all the stops and try and do whatever it takes to get one, if not 2 of them, to show up and put on an Atlanta Hawks uniform. Obviously, he's going to have a plan B if that doesn't work out. He's got to have something else in mind if he can't convince those guys to leave their respective positions, with the Lakers and Clippers. But I think there are plenty of players out there, plenty of different ways to build a team now that doesn't involve just trying to, fish for the big superstars. Look at the team that just pushed the Heat to the brink. Indiana went about it in a much different way, drafted their way and free agented their way with lesser stars into the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's very possible to be a competitive team and a championship contender without luring one of those superstars.
Sekou, how excited should Hawks fans be with their new head coach?
I think they should be ecstatic. I think they're getting a guy who, if nothing else, has learned from one of the masters for the past 17 years. Mike Budenholzer has been, long discussed as the coach in waiting in San Antonio. For him to forego that and to join the Hawks, and certainly his relationship with Danny Ferry had a lot to do with it. But for him to do that now at this stage of his career tells you something about the direction he thinks the Hawks are going in and what he thinks Danny Ferry can get accomplished as a general manager.
Sekou, let's talk about one of the other free agents. In this case, it's a coach, if he even wants to coach. Phil Jackson, we always get the rumors of all teams maybe giving him a call just to see if he wants to come back. A, would he come back as a coach? Is it more likely he wants to run a team as a GM, or none of the above and just sits back and watches?
Well, I think it's going to have to be a very unique situation for him to come back. He's not going to come back in a situation where he's not going to be able to compete for championships. I don't think he wants to coach anymore. I don't think he's interested in even entertaining coaching opportunities anymore. And I think the sooner teams figure that out, the better they're going to be. But it's going to be a hard sell for somebody to turn over their entire basketball operation to Phil Jackson when he's never been a front office person in his career. Even as a head coach, he's always worked with a general manager who handled the procurement of players and sorting out the roster. He's always kind of taken what they've given him, and it's usually been really, really good, obviously, with the Bulls and the Lakers, and run with it. So I'm not sure where his landing spot is, but I do think that he'll be back in the league in some capacity, and I just don't think it's going to be as a coach.
All right, Sekou, your finals prediction, who do you like and in how many games?
Man, I tell you what, after these past few rounds, as bad as my predictions have turned out, the Spurs and the Heat should certainly ignore this. But I like the Heat to win this thing, and I like it to go 6 games. I think, we get so charged up about what goes on in the conference finals, we forget that the finals is it's a whole different battle. And it's a different set of matchups for both teams and a chance for both teams to refocus and play for that big prize. I think the Heat win this thing in 6, and I think they have to shed some blood, sweat, and tears to get it done.
Well, it'll be fun. We haven't seen the Spurs since like months ago. They've had so much time off, so we'll see what happens if there's any rust factor. Sekou, it's a great pleasure. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
Thanks, fellas.
There's Sekou Smith from NBA TV and NBA.com. Stick around. We have some either, some or. Oh, yeah, we're doing it next on The Late Shift.
Gonna make you think. Why am I screaming?
Hey, look at this. There's a pooch on the field.
Hey, what is that, a K9? That's our zero-res mess of the week, a Husky running on the field in that game between Arizona State and Cal State Fullerton.
I'll tell you what
People
would have sold
talk
this
like
for me.
that.
If he would have attacked that right fielder right there, that dog takes a big chunk. Look at that guy. He didn't want anything to do with that dog.
Well, you got the dog going this way, you got
This
the
guy's
dog
going that way.
The right fielder saying, what do you want from me? And then the dog, at least he didn't make a number 1 or number 2 or number 7. The problem now is he wants to leave. I've had enough, and he can't get out.
Good news, though. He didn't make a mess.
No, he did not. But if you have a mess at your house, Zero Res can take care of that. Let the dog out already, will you, please?
Who?
This is our
let
late
the dog
shift special offer. $139 gets you 3 rooms and a free hallway. Check them out at ZeroResAtlanta.com. Call them at 770-242-1313. Zero Res, backwards, forwards, doesn't matter how you spell it. It's the right way to clean.
If you want to get in touch with us, a couple of ways you can do it through these exciting social networking venues. Dantanna's LS. That's our Twitter handle. On Facebook, be our friend with The Late Shift.
All right, I was up late over the weekend thinking of this game called Either Or.
You need to go to bed sooner.
Are you familiar? Or I need to explain to you?
No, I think I get the rules of this
All right,
one.
either this or that.
All
So
right.
we start with, in a late game, late pinch hitting appearance.
Yes.
Who do you want at the plate? Brian McCann or Evan Gattis?
Now, I think the popular answer would be El Oso Blanco because he's had so many clutch moments, and I don't ignore those. But I also don't ignore 9 years of a body of work with Brian McCann. Brian McCann, I think, is the most professional hitter on the Braves. Righty, lefty, it doesn't matter. Give me B-Mac.
I am going to go with Brian McCann as well. Congratulations, he has 1,000 hits.
All right, better big man. If you're just looking at overall skill set, what they can do for you, Dwight Howard or the Hawks' own Al Horford?
I must go with Dwight Howard. He is still a defensive presence in the middle, and he's also a true center. Al Horford is a power forward playing out of position.
I would agree with both. You still get dominant play out of Howard. I'm not done. All right, fine.
All right, the next either or is who is going to start for the Jets this year, Mark Sanchez or Geno Smith
All
from
right, you
opening
know,
day?
I'm going to go to Geno. I think by the time we get to that third or fourth preseason game, you're going to have a couple of moments from Geno. The Jets are looking for any reason to move on from Mark Sanchez. Geno might not be ready, but they're going to start him.
I agree. Geno Smith, they want to get rid of the stench that is Mark Sanchez.
All right, who is the sadder Bundy? Al or King Kong Bundy? Of course, Al from Married with Children fame.
This is a tough one. I'm going to go with Al Bundy because he lived in the past. The touchdowns that he scored at Polk High, he kept talking about it. King Kong Bundy was actually a champion. He actually lived the highlight.
All right, two things. He wasn't a champion. But Al's problem is he's with that Peggy, and he's a shoe salesman. King Kong can lose the weight and be happy.
5, as in 5 count. He also demanded that. RG3 or Cam Newton, either or. You're starting a team today.
Come on, that's a silly question. Cam, he can explode and give you all the fantasy numbers. RG3 just has something special about him going back to Baylor, and I saw what Cam did at Auburn. Cam's got to have a winning record before I can go crazy over him. Otherwise, he's a stat guy. It's RG3.
I don't know about that. RG3 can't stay healthy. I'm taking Cam Newton.
That shows how naive you are. All right, better big man if you're a Laker fan. You look at your centers. Shaquille O'Neal or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
I am going to go with the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The man revolutionized the game.
I would agree. Most dominating shot in NBA history. You couldn't defend it. The sky hook. Shaq should have been better, and I know that sounds odd because he was so dominant. He didn't care about his weight, didn't care about being better.
Will Smith or Jay-Z? Who's more talented?
Boy, this is a tough one. Both guys have gone down different venues here. I'm going to say Will Smith because, you know, Jay-Z now is trying to dip his toe into this agent pool, which I think is going to be a bad idea when it's all said and done. Will Smith singing, acting, performing, all of it. I'll go Smitty long term.
I am going to go with Will Smith as well. The man transformed his body in the movie Ali. The champ is here.
All right, best all-around.
John Cena stole that from him.
You're done. Best all-around Anderson for you wrestling fans. The great Arn Anderson, Double-A, or Ole, his cousin, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew.
They actually weren't related.
What?
But I am going to go with the enforcer, Arn Anderson. Ole Anderson never did anything but talk and get fatter and fatter by the moment.
Ole was a boob, all things being said. Arn was one of the best stick men around. He was also a guy in the ring who could execute just about any move. This is a no-brainer.
Pepperoni or sausage? Which is the better topping? I say you can't go wrong with either. Hi-yo!
You know what? I've got nothing to add to that. I like both toppings. You know what? I'd go sausage by that. Maybe that much.
Be careful how you do that.
All right, New Orleans or Vegas? You're getting about 4 guys together, a better weekend for all your guys. You're going out west of Vegas, you're going to New Orleans.
I have to go to Las Vegas. There is so much more there, and also you don't have the smell of the horse poop.
Nice pictures there, by the way. I enjoy this. All right, here's my problem. New Orleans is a closer, for us anyway, here in Atlanta, a quick jump. Vegas is a long trip, and I can tell this story now. In Vegas, you go for 2 or 3 nights. By night 3, and you and I are proof of this, we're tired. We can't go at it the same way. But I can gamble now in New Orleans. I can listen to some jazz. I can have a couple of them hurricanes. I think I'd go New Orleans now.
You've never done 2 out of those 3. It's up to the people at home to figure out which 2
you can't
those
prove
are.
that.
Hey, by the way, if you are broke when you come back from Vegas or New Orleans and you need some money tips, Oxygen Financial and our buddy Ted Jenkin, he's the guy to see. Go to yoursmartmoneymoves.com, oxygenfinancial.net. Follow Ted at LinkedIn or call him at 770-777-0427.
All right, the man who's going to help us with all the legal advice, he has all the answers. He's Ray Giudice, and he joins us next here on The Late Shift.
Now back to the Dantanna's Late Shift. Brought to you by attorney Ray Giudice with the Cellini All Cello Orchestra and the Chernoff Improvisational Mimes.
And welcome back to the Late Shift. Here's our man, the man in the know when it comes to all legal matters, and we like to apply them to the sports world. It's Ray Giudice. Ray, it's good to see you.
Good evening, guys.
We start with a story that caught us off guard on Friday.
Yeah.
Mookie Blaylock, the former Hawk guard, he crosses over the median during rush hour traffic, ends up hitting another car head-on. There's a fatality, and now he's looking at vehicular homicide, failure to maintain lane, driving on a suspended license. He's in deep doo-doo.
He is. Let's talk about vehicular homicide. There's 2 counts. Count 2 is what Mookie is charged with. That's a misdemeanor vehicular homicide. All it takes is an accident. You run a red light, a stop sign here, crossing the center line and hitting the other vehicle. It's his passenger that is the fatality.
I think it's a legal term, too, deep doo-doo.
Tried my best.
You just used. Let's talk about Titus Young and the fact that he was arrested 3 times in about a week span. We know that he is still looking for an NFL team, and I think he's going to be looking for quite some time. The NFLPA stepped up and said, look, we tried to offer him help many times. He refused our help.
Yeah, and this is a ramp-up situation for him. He's had some incidents in the past that were, albeit minor, misdemeanors, disorderly conducts, but this last situation is an armed robbery, basically a home invasion. Those are a series of felonies for which my clients and every lot of the lawyers' clients do prison time. I think the NFL here is trying to say, we're going to distance ourselves from pure criminal behavior, but the door was open, and it's open for anyone else who's got some small, minor behavioral problems or substance problems.
All right, talk to me about this, though. Legally, you know, the NFL, if they offer help, which is nice, that it's a good thing for them to do, but they're not in any legal hot water if a player makes bad decisions, be it criminally or anything else, by saying, well, you know what, he knew his chances, he took them, and now he's got to pay.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the NFL should continue to extend both legal coverage and perhaps psychological counseling to this young man. He is still a young guy. He's still probably a very talented guy. And, you know, people can make comebacks from bad mistakes in their life. So Robert Downey Jr. just a few years ago was doing time for heroin possession, and I think he's, you know, one of the richest guys, like richest Iron Man in the world. Apparently.
I'm sorry, I'm guilty of my nose. It keeps getting into your shot.
But, you know, there's a future.
Nose, I can't help it.
There could be a future for this young man if somebody wants to step up and give him some help.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Help.
I work
need
right
some-
through it. I go work out.
There's a surgeon out there that can help out. All right, talk to me about this EA sports lawsuit. What could end up coming from this?
The hearing that's set in late June is to see whether or not this is going to be certified as a class action, and then it changes from Ed O'Bannon's case, one guy, to every athlete whose image has ever been reproduced on EA Sports, ESPN, past, present, and what everybody's really worried about is all the future damages that could have. So this is going to change potentially college sports, professional sports. Every blue chip recruit who signs with the University of Alabama or Georgia is going to say 2 things. Yes, I want to sign for my scholarship, and what are you guys going to pay me for my image, my number, my physique when you sell my image to the news station, ESPN, or Electronic Arts?
Could change everything, Matt.
Here you see a way to get in touch with Ray via Facebook. Dynamite drop-in, Nick. That broadcast school is paying off. You can do it on LinkedIn or Twitter to get the advice of Mr. Giudice. Ray, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good stuff as always. All right, want to thank our guest, Sekou Smith from NBA TV and NBA.com for joining us. For Nick and Ray, I'm Matt. Have yourselves a great week. We'll talk to you next time here on The Late Shift. Good night now.
Either or. Either or.
Or, don't move. What do you move?
Either or.